This car goes on the dyno in T-4 days, and we have got a laundry list of things to do before she's dyno ready. So what is going on, boys? And welcome back to episode 21 of the Civic build series. We have our dyno day booked. It's this Friday for me. I don't know when you guys are gonna be seeing this video by, but I got 4 days to get this thing ready to go on the dyno. If you guys didn't catch the last video, we went out with Matt and started e-tuning this thing. We were hitting like freaking 14 to 16 pounds of boost or something like that. And Matt's basically telling me that she wants to eat. So if she wants to eat, we gotta prepare for this thing to make some power, and I gotta tidy up all the loose ends so we don't run into any issues on the dyno. First thing I wanna do before this thing goes on the dyno is make this thing look a little bit less sleeper. We've got a set of good old RPF ones. Boys, so many people hate on RPF ones. I think on Gen Civics, they look sick. They're super freaking light. We got some good old Zestinos on them, but these are what is gonna make us try and grip up 400 to 450 wheel in our turbo 8th gen Honda Civic. So I know we're going away from the sleeper build, boys, but we are gonna get rid of the Steelies for now. We got a huge event coming up at Tuner Bash in Edmonton here on May 18th, and I fully plan on entering the burnout competition with this car, assuming everything goes good on the dyno, and we are gonna light these winter tires up, and it's gonna be sick. Hopefully don't blow our transmission or the motor, but we'll see. If you guys wanna see it, you'll have to come out. SomethingCool is gonna have a booth there. It's gonna be a blast. Let's get this thing on the lift and get all 4 wheels swapped over, and then take a peek underneath because we got some leaks and we gotta take care of those because we can't have leaks on the dyno. I don't remember if this thing fits on the lift without the blocks. I'm gonna use them anyways. Oh yeah, these blocks fit perfect. Mint. We got enough brakes for when we take this thing to the track. Not gonna say they're big brakes, but we got brakes. So I got 3 hub-centric rings for this thing for some reason. I don't know where the 4th one is, so we're gonna run them on the front, but not on the back because I don't want this thing to shake. Ooh, that fits perfect. I gotta try and find some hub-centric rings for this car. I wanna get some lug nuts and center caps. If any of you guys in the comments know a place that sells center caps for RPF ones that aren't stupid prices, I will buy them. But otherwise, I'm broke. Let's see if we got brakes at the back in this thing. Oh, we got lots. I think I just put brake pads in this thing. I got a set of coilovers sitting up in the mezzanine for this car. I haven't decided if I want to put them in yet. It drives so nice on stock suspension, but it would look so cool with coils. Let me know what you guys think, because I don't know what to do. So underneath this car, there is a whole bunch of coolant leaks, and they're not like completely leaking. All it is just a bunch of coolant buildup in random spots. So on this coupler here where it bolts up to the lower rad hose, you guys can see a bunch of crusty coolant buildup. This is the hose that was initially leaking right here. Now it's almost bone dry. There's just crustiness on it, and I think it's coming from up higher at the upper rad hose. The thermostat, you can also see, has a little bit of crustiness on the bottom of it, which is a little suspicious. And if you look at all of the intercooler pipes, you can see that the rad fans have been just kind of blowing coolant all over the place. So in that case, I don't know exactly where it's leaking. I need to pressure test this thing, and that's gonna take a while to figure out, so I wanna get one other thing knocked out first. And that is gonna be finishing off the wiring on this electronic cutout, because right now, it's just going right through the center console, and I just have it plugged into a cigarette lighter outlet on the center console. I wanna get that thing actually hardwired to an Attribution and run the wires nice and clean and hidden, so nobody would have any idea that it's even in there. I just need to press the open button on my phone, and then the electronic cutout opens. Or not on my phone, on the little key fob remote thing that goes on my remote. It's Bluetooth, and it's sick. But it goes to a little module, which goes to the cigarette lighter outlet, and I had it just tucked in the center console, plugged in right there. And I don't wanna have anything in my center console. I want this to be properly wired up. So what we gotta do is cut this wire here that goes to this 12-volt cigarette lighter outlet. There'll be a power and a ground in here, and then I can just run that power to an Attifuse and then run the ground to a chassis ground. That way, this module is gonna have power at all times. I just need to tuck this up underneath our dash and get it nice and secure, and we will tape this harness together here so it doesn't come unplugged. So what I wanna do is run this wire all the way along here, and then we're gonna tuck it up underneath the dash under there so that we can put an Attifuse kit on our fuse panel, which is right under the dash, which as you guys can see, I already got 2 Attifuses on there for our gauges. This turned out so freaking good. And I ended up going a little bit harder than I initially said I was going to in that time lapse. We didn't just do the exhaust cutout wiring. I ended up routing the whole Honda harness with the OBD2 cable back behind my dash. It goes over to the glove box. Colton helped me out. He was sitting in the passenger seat while I fed it through with the coat hanger. And now if I pop open my glove box, we got a Honda in there. All we gotta do is open that up. Then we got a USB cable and can plug it right into the laptop while we're tuning, which is awesome. Then for the electronic cutout, as you guys can see, I added a 3rd Attifuse there. It just goes to a fuse that gets 12 volts with ignition power. And then I ran the ground up to that chassis ground right there. Same ground that I'm using for my gauges. And that is the complete setup. So now, literally all I gotta do is slap these covers back on the bottom, just like that. And then it covers up everything underneath. You can slap this guy back on. And now this whole area looks like nothing ever even happened, which is freaking sick. That came out so clean. Now we gotta see if the exhaust cutout works. One thing about living in the city though, it is 12:49 a.m. right now. So let's get a good old cold start for the boys. Oh yeah, baby. Hell yeah, dude. Close her up. Just like that, she's nice and quiet. And I can shut it back off. That is sick, dude. Now we got no wires hanging out other than my charging cords. Everything's nice and OEM, and you can't even see anything under there. This is perfect. It is the next day now, and that's the first time I've cleaned this car in over a year. That shows you how much I cared about this thing. But now we gotta check engine light code for something to do with the thermostat not coming up to temp in time. I can't remember the exact code, but what is a little bit suspicious is there was some leaks on this thing, so I didn't bleed the coolant. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the coolant bled out on this thing now. I am parked on a slight incline. It's not that steep, but I'm gonna pop the rad cap off, actually put a proper coolant funnel on here, run this thing up to temp, then we gotta do an oil change after. I like using these extensions to get this thing real high up. Also, just so you guys know, you probably hear a little bit of noise in the background. We got Ethan here working on his truck, and then Colton's also probably gonna be working on his Evo in the background. Things are a little bit hectic right now, but we gotta get this thing ready because we go on the dyno in literally 2 days. I have tonight and tomorrow to get this thing ready for the dyno, so let's do it. All right, I guess I'm gonna not be a dick in my neighborhood because this is gonna be running for a while, so let's shut the exhaust cutout. And now she's dead silent. This might take a while to bleed. So I just got the Honda to open, and this is the code that we got. It's a P0128, coolant temperature below thermostat regulating temperature. So we are gonna clear that real quick. These Hondas communicate so fast, the engine light already went out. Okay, I have been bleeding this thing for like 25 to 30 minutes at this point. I think I got like 2 air bubbles out of it and that's it. I went ahead and zip tied a couple more vacuum lines that I had down there because we're gonna do a boost leak test up next here after we change the oil. The heat is pumping super hot inside of this thing. Our coolant temps are up to temp, and on the Honda at idle right now, as soon as the fan kicks in, she comes down to like 187, which is perfect. So I'm gonna say our cooling system's bled, and if we get that thermostat code again, we might need a thermostat. But it's weird because it's opening, it's just not opening fast enough. The nice part about having a hoist, these oil changes are so convenient. Oh, this thing is too short. What the hell? We're having a bit of a catastrophe here. Oh my God, what is happening with this oil change? I love how I just said that this is not gonna make a mess, and look what I just did. That was so dumb. I got it all over my hoodie. It's all over the floor. The oil drain was too high. It was past these 2 little holes in the cart. So all the oil was just dumping out of these cracks, coming down the side of it and all over the ground. Now that we already made 1 mess, what's the problem if we make 2? Put this drain plug back on there. The drain plug gasket's still good. She only went 1 oil change on that. And then torque it to spec. Beep, 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 beep. Boom, 30 foot-pounds. Oh, actually, we got so much room for activities now. You know why? Because we have a custom exhaust. There's all this space up here now. Just like that, she is out. Now we can grab our fresh new Wix oil filter. I always run either Wix or Honda filters in this thing. Honestly, couldn't tell you why. I just heard good stuff about them. I have not changed the oil in this car in so long that I don't even remember how much it takes. What I do know is they're supposed to take 530 in these K20s stock. We didn't change any bearing tolerances, obviously, in this engine. It's a bone stock engine. I didn't even tear the damn thing out of the car. All I did was take off the valve cover and we slapped a turbo kit on it. So the only reason I'm running 540 because this engine is gonna see a lot more heat being boosted if we go to the track and just daily driving it, beating the piss out of it. And if I'm being honest with you, another reason I'm running 540 is because I got this oil for free for winning a racing event at the end of the season last summer. So I didn't have to pay for the oil change in this thing today, which is sick. And this is good oil. And now that we got the oil change all finished up on this thing, we gotta move on to the next step, which is the most important step before you throw your car on a dyno. And there's a reason we don't have the filter on our turbo right now. We gotta do a boost leak test. Then we're gonna hook our regulator straight to this quick connect fitting on the front. We're gonna hook our air compressor up right here. We're gonna set our pressure with the diaphragm on the regulator, open this valve up, and then it's gonna shoot air into our intake system. Then we are gonna take a bottle with some soapy water and we're gonna spray around all the intake connections, all of the vacuum lines, on the wastegate, on our boost controller, to our throttle body here. And then you're also gonna spray all of your intercooler pipe connections. Wherever there's a silicone coupler, spray it. Then what you're gonna do once you get it all hooked up is we're gonna hook our air line up to the regulator, just like that. And as you can see, we already got 20 pounds in there. The reason we got 20 pounds is because if you grab this adjustment here, you push it down or pull it up, that's what locks it. So we got this diaphragm tightened all the way down with it pushed down so that it's sealed. Then what we're gonna do is whatever we want to boost leak pressure test this to, we're gonna pull up on this, we're gonna increase the pressure with the dial. As you can see, it was at about 15 there. Now it's coming up to about 20, there's about 25. Lock it. Now we're gonna boost leak test this intake system at 25 PSI and it's gonna regulate that. So we're gonna open this valve and you'll hear the air start to leak in there until it reaches 25 PSI. I hear leaks everywhere. You guys can probably see from that time lapse a little bit where the bubbles were coming out because there is one right on top of the turbo. And we got some pretty hefty leaks. The only 2 spots that are leaking is right on the top of the turbo here is just spraying air like crazy. So that O-ring that sits on the cold side of the turbo housing must not be sealed. Then our second leak, which is also spraying like crazy, and I can only see it from the outside. I want to pull the front bumper off and lift this thing in the air and spray all the other ones. But this intercooler coupler right here on the driver's side is spraying right by the hose clamp where it meets the intercooler. And it's also spraying on the backside on the intercooler pipe. But the one on the passenger side isn't leaking at all. So what we're gonna do now is get the car back on the lift. I'm gonna lift it up, take the front bumper off. We're gonna boost leak test it again. I'm gonna spray all the connections, and then we can 100% verify every single spot that we gotta take apart and reseal. Before the compressor kicks in though, I do want to show you guys where these leaks are. See right on the top of the turbo there, it just starts bubbling like crazy. And then on this front intercooler coupler, you can hear it hissing. If I spray this, it is coming out like crazy there. Really bad leak. And then on this side as well, you can't really see, but it is also leaking. Ooh, that's a big bubble. There ended up being way more boost leaks than I thought there was gonna be, and we found some other problems. First boost leak we took care of was obviously this coupler right here. I just moved the couplers nice and close to the rolls on the intercooler pipes, tighten them right up. They're sealed, already boost leak tested it, no more leaks there. Then if we hop over to our blow-off valve, which honestly, I'm not really liking the placement of this. It's facing the front of the car and I have my fog light out. So this blow-off valve did have some water in it after I just pressure washed the car. So I measured this. This is a 1¼ inch outlet. I might get a little filter or something like that, just to make sure that doesn't fill with water and seize up or push water through the intercooler pipes or something like that. But if you guys take a look at the gasket on this blow-off valve, you can see a little bit of black silicone on there. And that's because this cork gasket was just absolutely pissing on this thing. So I silicone that up. She's nice and sealed now. Unfortunately, with eBay parts like this, sometimes you do gotta just make it work. No, I do not suggest siliconing a blow-off valve flange. That's not the proper way to do it. But in this situation, this is a budget build and it works. Also, our first coupler coming around this bend was also leaking, and underneath that coupler right up there was leaking as well. So I did the same thing with the hose clamps, got her nice and sealed up. Then I know the wastegate spring is working because as soon as I pressure the system up to, I don't know, like 10 PSI around there, you can hear the wastegate start to open up and you can hear the air coming out of the dump tube a little bit. Then the other thing I noticed on this car from the front end was that the intercooler sat a little bit crooked, and I went through and checked and actually found that the little pin that holds the AC condenser on this side in the bushing was completely broken on that side. That mount was just flopping around, and these bolts that secure the condenser were not even tight. So this side of the condenser was all slacked down. This side was okay, but I got these ones more snugged up too. There is a nut on the back side of these, and they're an absolute nightmare to try and get a wrench on to hold it while you tighten the front. This one, I had to put a bigger M6 bolt in to get it secure and up nice and tight. I put an M8 bolt through this because that pin was broken with a nylon locking nut and a washer. So now the AC condenser sits nice and flush and it is supported. So the front end should be good to go now. Another thing I noticed after I got this secured is there's an actual air gap between that bolt and this clamp now. Before, they were completely touching. So that's good. Everything's starting to fit a little bit nicer now. So we have taken care of all the boost leaks in the intercooler piping. I had this headlight off and I just double checked all the hoses in behind there, made sure there was no leaks there. So the last leak that we got right now is the compressor housing on the turbo. But before we get to that, I did have this headlight off for a reason, and that's because our low beams on this car, as much as I want this thing to be a sleeper, were still freaking halogen bulbs. And I hate halogen bulbs. They are so ugly. And we had these Seagate LEDs for our high beams, but they're kind of crapping out on me. So I swapped these out too. Now the reason I am taking the opportunity to put LED bulbs in this thing is because we got the bumper off. Ideally, after this, we won't have to take the front bumper off again unless we're doing some trimming and cleaning some things up. So I figured while we got it off, why not swap out our headlight bulbs for some good old LEDs. And in today's video, we got our LEDs from our boys over at Coolant. And these things are pretty baller, not gonna lie. I installed them in the driver's side already and turned them on just to see how freaking bright these things were. Just because I don't like installing a product and showing it in my videos unless I know it's a good product. So we got two different sets of headlights here. One's a high beam and one's a low beam. The reason they're different on the 8th gens is because in the headlight, there's actually a little cover over top of the low beam bulb. So these LED high beams are projectors and they are so freaking bright, but they're really, really long. So those bulbs would not fit in the low beam area. So we got these guys right here, just a nice simple LED bulb. It's got the Coolant logo on the little ballast, and they got some real nice cooling fans on the back, which is nice. I remember when I first started installing LED headlight bulbs in cars, they actually had these like big foil things that you had to fold out on the back to help dissipate the heat. Now they just got a fan on them, which is dope. Then if we take a look at the high beams, this is what I was talking about on how there's a huge projector on these things. On the front of it, they got this big projector lens, and these things are long. So if you were to put this in the low beams, this would just contact the cover that sits in the housing of the headlight, and you wouldn't get good lighting. But as a high beam, these things are gonna be bright. Then in this kit, they also include extra seals for you, just in case you start getting condensation in your headlights or anything like that. And they include this little Allen key piece that you gotta install so that this whole housing here doesn't rotate when you're rotating the headlight bulb into place. Now, before we even get to installing these, you guys are probably wondering, is this a sponsored ad? Are they paying you to do this? No, it's not a sponsored ad. Yes, they did send me these headlights out, but I don't install anything like this unless it benefits you guys in some way. So I did get them to give me a discount code for you guys. If you guys use the code Daniel12, it'll get you 12% off of absolutely anything on their website. But if you use the code Daniel15, it will get you 15% off these headlights specifically for your 8th gen turbo builds, boys. Because these headlights are direct plug and play fit for the 8th gen. So I'll link these in the description. Let's get these things installed, get the front bumper back on, and then we gotta reseal the cold side housing of that turbo. Whoops, I don't know how that didn't break. Now they got the headlight out and on the bench after dropping it on the freaking ground. Let's buzz through this real quick. This outside one is the low beam, nice and easy, twist, lock in, and we're done. Plug this right into the factory connector, she's plug and play. High beam is a bit of a different story. I put that Allen key that locks this whole collar on. And then if you try and install these, you'll notice that they don't really twist very good. They only twist about halfway. And that's because the little tabs are so thick on these because these LEDs are so big that they don't fit. So what you gotta do is take these 3 screws out, not even all the way out. You just need to back them off just a little bit so that this black collar here on the headlight housing can lift. Then we're gonna slap these guys in there, rotate until it stops, which is right there. And then we are going to tighten those screws right back up. And that's just gonna squish the headlight in there, make it nice and secure. And honestly, even if you have a headlight issue, it doesn't really matter that you're installing these this way because either way, to swap out headlights at all in these 8th gen Hondas, you need to pull the headlight off. And there we go. Just like that, we got our high beam and we got our low beam. Now let's go get this thing installed, which will take 2 seconds because it's plug and play. Now that we got the headlights 100% installed and replaced, and we got all the boost leaks down on the bottom side fixed, I already put pressure through the system again, sprayed everything with soapy water. She's nice and sealed. I even went underneath the car and I sprayed the vacuum lines that go to the top and bottom ports on the wastegate and sprayed around the crush washers on those fittings. Nothing was leaking, so we're all good there. And we got no more leaks on this thing, so she is dialed. Let's get the front bumper back on and reseal that cold side of the turbo. boys, it is the next day or 2 days later after we just did that because we pulled an all-nighter to get that done. And I spent the next day setting up our new SomethingCool booth and a whole bunch of other stuff on the backside of things. So this video is kind of ending on a weird note, but it is dyno day today. So I'll give you guys a quick update on everything we just did in that time lapse, and then we're heading to the dyno. So I resealed off the compressor side of the turbo, or the cold side housing, and there is still a little bit of a boost leak on the top here. So I think the only other solution to that is gonna be to pull this bracket off, and then we could get some black RTV along the backside, bolt the bracket back on, it'll seal that up. But honestly, I sent Matt a video of that boost leak, and he's like, honestly, it's on the compressor. It's not like it's a boost leak at the intake manifold or in any of the intercooler pipes or anything, so we're just gonna send it. Trust me, I'm not proud of the fact that I put black RTV to try and seal the cold side housing of the turbo. I'm not that guy. Usually I would put an actual O-ring in there, but right now is dyno day today. I was in a rush. I knew I wasn't gonna be able to get no rings, so I tried to seal it, and unfortunately, it was a big waste of time because it still leaks. But sometimes that happens when you're building cars. Also, you guys saw in the time lapse, partially, I plugged the LEDs in backwards on this side because they're polarity sensitive because it's an LED, which is essentially a diode. It's a light emitting diode, and it was plugged in backwards. So the voltage couldn't flow through the light or light it up. So I had to pop the bumper off, put those 2 clips in, and she was good to go. But these lights are freaking bright as hell.
As you guys can see here, this is what the stock halogen lights looked like, and a little view from inside the car. Then this is what the LED headlights looked like. As you can tell,
the LEDs are so much freaking brighter. But like I said, that's where we're gonna end today's video, boys, because I'm kind of in a rush to get this thing on the dyno. I'm excited. Leave your guys' power number guesses in the comments down below. Peace out, boys. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you guys on the dyno.